Ma'am, stop right there. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We need to see your identification.
Why? I'm on my way to lunch. This is tribal land.
That doesn't matter. We have federal authority. Show us your ID or we'll detain you for obstruction.
I'm Navajo. This is Navajo Nation land. You have no jurisdiction here.
Ma'am, we decide where we have jurisdiction. You need to come with us for questions.
Get your hands off me!
You're assaulting me.
You have no authority
Turn
here!
around. Hands behind your back. Stop resisting.
I'm not resisting. This is tribal land. You have no jurisdiction.
Hey, that's Sarah. What are you doing? You can't
Sir,
do this
step
here.
back. This is federal business.
My name is Sarah Begay. I'm an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation.
Jury hammers agents with $22.4 million verdict. 3 ICE agents drove onto sovereign tribal land at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. They had no warrant, no jurisdiction, and no legal authority to be there. But they had badges, guns, and the confidence that comes from years of operating without consequences. When they detained a Navajo woman outside the tribal health clinic where she worked, they violated not just her civil rights, but 150 years of federal Indian law. The security cameras at the clinic captured everything. Every illegal command, every jurisdictional violation, every moment of a federal crime unfolding on land where these agents had no power whatsoever. And unlike body cam footage that can be turned off or conveniently malfunction, these cameras were tribal property, backed up to servers in Window Rock, completely outside federal control. Before we continue, if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring accountability to light. Sarah Begay was 34 years old, a registered nurse with the Indian Health Service, and an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation. She'd worked at the Tsaile Health Center for 6 years, treating patients in one of the most underserved communities in America. She lived in a small house 10 miles from the clinic, drove the same route every day, and was known for her calm professionalism even in emergencies. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Sarah woke at 5:30, made coffee, checked on her grandmother who lived in the adjacent Hogan, and drove to work in her white Toyota pickup. She clocked in at 7:02 a.m., exactly as she did every weekday. Her shift would end at 3 p.m. She had no criminal record, no outstanding warrants, no reason to expect that federal agents would be waiting for her. The Tsaile Health Center sits on Navajo Nation land in northeastern Arizona, miles from the nearest town, surrounded by red rock and high desert. The tribe had installed security cameras 2 years earlier after a string of thefts. 4 cameras covered the parking lot, 2 covered the entrance, 1 covered the side lot where staff parked. All recording in high definition, all with audio, all uploading to tribal servers every 60 seconds. At 9:43 a.m., the cameras picked up a dark blue Ford Explorer with government plates pulling into the staff parking area. Sarah was inside, finishing her notes on a patient she'd just treated. 3 ICE agents climbed out. Agent Derek Hollis, a 12-year veteran with a documented history of complaints. Agent Ryan Martinez, younger but equally aggressive. Agent Jennifer Klein, 7 years with ICE, known for following orders without question. The entrance camera had a clear view. Sarah pushed through the glass doors at 9:47 a.m., carrying her lunch bag and keys, heading toward her truck. The 3 agents intercepted her before she reached the vehicle. Hollis stepped directly into her path. "Ma'am, stop right there." Sarah stopped, her expression confused. "Can I help you?" Hollis pulled out his badge but didn't introduce himself. "Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We need to see your identification." Sarah's hand tightened on her keys. "Why? I'm on my way to lunch." "We have reason to believe you're not legally authorized to work in the United States," Hollis said. "We need to verify your immigration status." The camera captured Sarah's face. Shock, then anger. "I'm Navajo. This is Navajo Nation land. You're on tribal territory." Hollis moved closer. "That doesn't matter. We have federal authority. Show us your ID or we'll detain you for obstruction." Sarah reached into her purse slowly, pulling out her tribal enrollment card and her Arizona driver's license. "Here. I'm an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation. I'm a U.S. citizen. I work for Indian Health Service. You have no jurisdiction here." Martinez stepped to her left, cutting off her path to the truck. "Ma'am, we decide where we have jurisdiction. Now we need you to come with us for further questioning." Sarah's voice rose. "Questioning about what? I just showed you my ID. I'm a citizen. I'm on sovereign land. You need tribal permission to be here. Klein moved behind her. Ma'am, you're making this harder than it needs to be. If you cooperate, this will go quickly. Sarah pulled her phone from her pocket. I'm calling tribal police. Hollis grabbed her wrist. Put the phone down. You're not calling anyone until we clear this up. The camera showed Sarah trying to pull her arm free, not violently, just firmly asserting her right not to be touched. Hollis twisted her wrist. Martinez grabbed her other arm. Sarah's phone fell, clattering on the pavement. Get your hands off me, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the pain. You're assaulting me. You have no authority here. This is tribal land. A clinic worker, an older Navajo man named Thomas Yazzie, had come outside. He saw the confrontation and immediately started recording on his phone. Hey, that's Sarah. What are you doing? Hollis turned briefly. Sir, step back. Federal business. Thomas didn't step back. You're on Navajo land. You can't just grab people. You need tribal authorization. Another camera angle showed Klein forcing Sarah's arms behind her back. The handcuffs clicked shut at 9:51 a.m., exactly 4 minutes after the confrontation began. Sarah kept her voice loud and clear, projecting so the cameras would catch it. My name is Sarah Begay. I'm an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation, tribal enrollment number 884-7263. I'm a registered nurse with Indian Health Service. I am a U.S. citizen being illegally detained by ICE agents on sovereign Navajo Nation territory without tribal permission and without legal jurisdiction. The date is Tuesday, and the time is approximately 9:51 a.m. By now, 3 more clinic employees had emerged, all recording. Thomas was already on the phone with the Navajo Nation Police Department. The agents pushed Sarah toward their vehicle. She didn't resist physically, but she didn't make it easy. Every step was deliberate, every movement documented. They put her in the back seat at 9:53 a.m. The Explorer pulled out of the parking lot, heading off tribal land toward the federal highway. Thomas uploaded his video to Facebook before the vehicle was even out of sight. Within 15 minutes, it had been shared 200 times. Within an hour, it was national news. Sarah's supervisor, Dr. Rita Tsinigini, saw the commotion from her office window. By the time she got outside, Sarah was gone. Dr. Tsinigini immediately called the Navajo Nation Attorney General's office, then the Regional Indian Health Service Director, then Sarah's emergency contact, her brother James. James Begay was a tribal attorney, and when he got the call, he was in a meeting in Window Rock. He walked out, got in his truck, and started making calls before he even left the parking lot. The Navajo Nation police arrived at the clinic at 10:12 a.m. Officer Leonard Benally took statements from every witness, secured the security footage, and issued an immediate alert that federal agents had conducted an unauthorized arrest on tribal land. At the ICE field office in Flagstaff, Hollis and his team brought Sarah into an interrogation room. The room had cameras, but they were federal. What the agents didn't know was that Sarah's Apple Watch, still on her wrist despite the handcuffs, was recording audio and transmitting her location to her brother's phone. Hollis sat across from her, Martinez standing behind. Ms. Begay, we have information that you've been using fraudulent documents to work in the United States. Sarah met his eyes. I showed you my tribal enrollment card and my driver's license. I'm a U.S. citizen. I was born in Tsaile, Arizona. I've never lived anywhere else. What fraudulent documents are you talking about? Hollis opened a folder. Inside was a single page, a printout of what appeared to be a database hit suggesting someone named Sarah Begay might be undocumented. No photo, no date of birth, no specifics. Just a name match in a system known for errors. This is your evidence? Sarah asked. A name match? Do you know how common the name Sarah Begay is on the Navajo reservation? There are probably 50 women with that name. Hollis leaned forward. You fit the profile. You're being evasive. That's suspicious behavior. What profile? Sarah asked. Being Navajo? Working on a reservation? Having a common native name? The door opened. A supervisor, Assistant Field Office Director Karen Webb, entered with 2 officials from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Her face was rigid with barely controlled anger. Hollis, Martinez, Klein. Now, the interrogation ended at 10:41 a.m. Sarah was released at 10:55 a.m., less than 90 minutes after her arrest. James Begay was already there, along with the Navajo Nation Attorney General and a federal civil rights attorney named Michael Tsaile who'd handled tribal sovereignty cases for 20 years. The drive back to the clinic was tense. Tsaile was already on the phone with the Justice Department, with the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs, with every office that needed to know federal agents had just violated tribal sovereignty. When they arrived back at Tsaile at 11:47 a.m., the parking lot was full. Tribal council members, community members, the tribal president's chief of staff. Sarah stood in the same spot where she'd been arrested 2 hours earlier and gave a statement. Her voice was calm, but the anger underneath was unmistakable. This morning, 3 ICE agents came onto Navajo Nation land without permission, without jurisdiction, and without legal authority. They detained me in the parking lot where I work, handcuffed me, and took me off tribal land for interrogation. I am a U.S. citizen. I am Navajo. I have every right to be here, to work here, to exist here. What happened to me is what happens when federal agents think tribal sovereignty is optional, when they see brown skin and assume illegality, when they operate without accountability. The difference is I have resources. I have family who are attorneys. I have a tribe that will fight for me. Not everyone does. The Justice Department opened an investigation that afternoon. The FBI seized the agents' credentials by 3 p.m. All 3 were placed on administrative leave by 4 p.m. The security footage became the foundation of the case. Multiple angles, clear timestamps, undeniable audio. The witnesses' phone videos corroborated everything. Sarah's Apple Watch audio captured the interrogation. The evidence was overwhelming. Hollis had arrested a U.S. citizen on sovereign tribal land without jurisdiction. Martinez had participated in the assault. Klein had aided. None had verified Sarah's citizenship status before detaining her. None had sought tribal permission to operate on tribal land. All had ignored her repeated assertions of her rights. Federal charges came 6 weeks later. Deprivation of rights under color of law, a felony carrying up to 10 years. Conspiracy to violate civil rights. False imprisonment. Assault. But the tribal charges came first. The Navajo Nation filed criminal charges in tribal court for trespassing, assault on tribal land, and violation of tribal sovereignty. The legal battle over jurisdiction became a secondary story, but the message was clear. The tribe would not tolerate federal overreach. Sarah filed a civil lawsuit 3 months later. She sued the 3 agents personally and ICE as an agency. The complaint was devastating. It detailed not just her arrest, but a pattern. ICE agents had conducted 17 unauthorized operations on Navajo land in the previous 2 years. 17 times they'd entered sovereign territory without permission. 12 of those times they'd detained tribal members. 8 of those detained were later confirmed to be U.S. citizens. The pattern was undeniable. The trial took place in federal court in Phoenix. The jury included 2 Native Americans, one from the Tohono Nation, one from the White Mountain Apache tribe. They watched the security footage. They heard Sarah's testimony. They saw the lack of evidence, the jurisdictional violations, the racial profiling. Hollis's attorney tried to argue good faith, but the cross-examination destroyed him. Agent Hollis, when Ms. Begay showed you her tribal enrollment card, what did you think? I thought it might be fake. Did you verify it? No. Why not? We don't have a system to verify tribal documents in the field. So you assumed a document you couldn't verify was fraudulent rather than legitimate? I made a judgment call based on experience. Based on what experience? That Native people carry fake IDs? The courtroom went silent. Agent Hollis, in your 12-year career, how many white people have you detained for immigration violations on or near tribal land? The attorney held up a document. I'll answer for you. 0. You've conducted 43 immigration enforcement actions near or on tribal land. All 43 involved Native Americans or Latinos. All 43. Is that a pattern or a coincidence? Martinez's testimony was worse. He admitted he knew they needed tribal permission to operate on reservation land, but assumed it didn't matter because they were federal agents. He admitted grabbing Sarah roughly. He admitted hearing her state she was a U.S. citizen and ignoring it. Klein's testimony was brief. She'd followed orders. She'd done what Hollis told her to do. The defense brought in ICE policy manuals, but the prosecution brought tribal law experts, federal Indian law scholars, former federal prosecutors who explained that tribal sovereignty isn't optional, that the Navajo Nation has jurisdiction over its own land, that federal agents can't just ignore it. The jury deliberated for 11 hours. When they returned, the verdict was clear. Liable on all counts. The damages phase took another week. Sarah's attorney presented medical records showing shoulder damage from the handcuffs, psychological evaluations documenting anxiety and PTSD, testimony from colleagues about her reputation before and after. Then came the punitive damages argument. This wasn't just about compensating Sarah. It was about sending a message. The jury awarded $22.4 million. $2.4 million in compensatory damages. $20 million in punitive damages split between the three agents and ICE. The courtroom erupted. Sarah sat quietly, her brother beside her, tears streaming down her face. The judge, a Reagan appointee named Robert Chen, read the verdict and added his own statement. The actions of these agents represent one of the most egregious violations of tribal sovereignty and civil rights I have encountered. They entered tribal land without permission, detained a U.S. citizen without cause, and operated with a level of disregard for the law that is both shocking and unacceptable. The verdict must send a message that tribal sovereignty is not a suggestion. It is law. Hollis, Martinez, and Klein filed an appeal. It was denied. ICE settled for an undisclosed amount rumored to be in the 8 figures. The 3 agents were terminated. Their law enforcement careers ended. Their names permanently attached to a case taught in law schools as an example of what happens when federal authority meets tribal sovereignty and loses. Sarah continued working at the clinic, though she transferred to a different location after a year. She used part of the settlement to establish a legal defense fund for Native Americans facing immigration enforcement. She speaks at conferences about sovereignty, about profiling, about what happens when agents assume brown skin means illegal status. The Navajo Nation implemented new protocols. Any federal law enforcement wanting to operate on tribal land now needs advance written permission from tribal authorities, except in immediate life-threatening emergencies. Violations result in immediate tribal criminal charges. Other tribes adopted similar policies. The case became precedent. Years later, when asked if the money mattered, Sarah's answer was simple. The money isn't justice. Justice is 3 agents who can't do this to anyone else. Justice is tribes having their sovereignty respected. Justice is federal agents learning that badges don't override the Constitution or tribal law. That's what matters. The security footage is still used in training, both for ICE and for tribal police. It shows exactly how quickly lawful authority becomes criminal action when jurisdiction is ignored and civil rights are violated. 3 agents learned that lesson the hard way. And somewhere on the Navajo reservation and reservations across the country, Native people saw the verdict and felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Proof that the system could work. Evidence that accountability was possible. Should federal agents face automatic criminal prosecution for unauthorized operations on tribal land? Comment below. Because what happened to Sarah Begay wasn't just about one woman. It was about whether tribal sovereignty means anything when federal agents decide it doesn't. If you believe federal law enforcement must respect tribal sovereignty and that civil rights apply to everyone regardless of race, subscribe and turn on notifications. Tomorrow, we're covering another case that proves documentation and courage can bring down even the most powerful people who think they're above the law.